This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
So this was the week that I got to go out to Byberg, which is a preaching conference. And it's a preaching conference that's currently being held in Cannon Beach. I have to tell you, it's not too much suffering to be in Cannon Beach for 3 days. It was beautiful. It was lovely. We didn't get rained on. The wind wasn't blowing. So both Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, I got up a little extra early so I could do a walkabout and just enjoy the early morning. Now, doing a walkabout at the beach is always interesting. And I think one of the things that makes it interesting is sometimes it's not always easy to get to the beach. You know where it is, but depending on whether there are cliffs or stairs or private property, it's not always easy to get to the beach. So I was skirting town, and as I was skirting along, I was very aware of all sorts of little signs along the road that said, private property, keep out. Private road for use of owners and renters only. There were other ways that people did that too. Fences are a pretty decent way to keep people out. Hedges keep people out. Now, there is nothing wrong with boundaries. Boundaries are good, boundaries are healthy. But boundaries are also based on a bit of a premise that I need to protect what is mine. And usually when we need to protect what is ours, it's because we do not believe that there is enough. Protection is based on a scarcity principle. Well, the good news is not based on a scarcity principle. The good news is based upon an abundance principle. And today we get that in full force. We've met John the Baptizer quite a bit recently. John the Baptizer, who is always pointing to Jesus, and today John the Baptizer is still pointing to Jesus. He sees him, and he says, there he is, the Lamb of God. Now, you know, in the church, I'm not sure exactly what we think when we hear Lamb of God. Maybe it sounds a little bit like church talk. Maybe it just sounds like some fancy-dancy. But for Jews who would have heard Lamb of God, some things instantly would have went off in their head. First of all, it was sacrificial language. But probably two pictures would have came very rapidly to their head. First of all, in Isaiah, there is the suffering servant. And it talks about like a lamb being led to the slaughter who doesn't say a word. That's one image they would have had. Very likely the second image they would have had would have been the Passover lamb. Now, the Passover had long been their history, and it was a piece of their history that went all the way back to Egypt. In Egypt, God's people had become slaves. And God had sent Moses to free the people from slavery. So Moses went off to Pharaoh and said, Pharaoh, let my people go. And Pharaoh says, you're crazy, I'm not letting your people grow. So there was this whole series of things that came along, from locusts to bloody river, all these plagues that came along. And still Pharaoh kept saying, no, your people can't go anywhere. And we get to the very last thing that happens. And the very last piece of it is the angel of death is going to show up. So Moses says to God's people, you need to go. You need to sacrifice a lamb. And with the blood of the lamb, you need to paint your doorpost. So when the angel of death comes, the angel of death will go over your house. The blood of the lamb saved God's people. So today, as John the Baptizer is saying, there there is the Lamb of God. That's an image God's people would have had, the blood of the Lamb who had saved God's people. There he is, John the Baptizer says. He says it twice. There is the Lamb of God who comes to take away the sin of the world. Now, so often when we think about this whole sin and salvation dance, we think about me and Jesus. Now, there's absolute truth to that. God comes to us individually. God saves us individually. But the plan and the picture is so much bigger. God comes to save the world. The world that we have polluted and the world that we have used up and the world that we have misused and abused. God has come to save the world. The planet. All the pieces of the planet. And then within the planet, all the people of the planet. Which gives us these two great images. A heaven that is filled with forgiven sinners, but most likely a hell that is also filled with forgiven sinners. The difference between those who have accepted the forgiveness and those who have rejected the forgiveness. Abundance. A God of plenitude who has come to save the world. John points at him, and the disciples go after him, and Jesus says to those disciples, "Come and see. Come and see." You know, that is a double-edged statement. Come and see. I was gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which meant the work is all the same. It just needs to be crowded to Sunday and Thursday. So before I left town on Sunday, I had this extended list of things I needed to get done before I could leave town. And the top of that list, there were 3 women in 3 care facilities that I needed to get out and get visited before I left town. So I got to that 3rd care facility, and as I showed up to the locked door, I was reminded that that care facility's doors are locked up except for during regular office hours. During regular office hours, a woman sits at the front desk and she can make sure who's coming in and out. But the rest of the time, the doors are locked. Now, it would seem as often as I'm in and out of care facilities, I would know all these magical numbers. I do not. So there I was on that side of the door, and the person I needed to see was on that side of the door, and the frustration was welling up. And about the time I was about to turn and walk away, I noticed that inside the care facility, a man was sitting next to the keypad. My guess is the man lives at the care facility. I don't know that. He was in a wheelchair that was tilted back, and because his fingers did not work well, he had a tool, it looked a bit like a knitting needle, that he was painstakingly pushing the numbers into the keypad to let guests in. So I stood there and I waited for him to put the numbers in, and I went in and I did my visit, and half an hour, 45 minutes later I came out, and there sat the man beside the keypad with his tool, punching the numbers in and out. So not only could I come and go, but others could as well. I couldn't have done my job last Sunday if that man hadn't been there doing what he was doing. Come and see is a double-edged piece. The first part of come and see is we are invited. We're invited to discipleship. We're invited to come and sit at the feet of Jesus, to hear and to grow. But the second half of come and see is to invite the next person. Come and see. Because until we are an entire community, all the people that God desires to be in this place, we can't do all the work God desires for us to do. Had the man not been there poking the keypad, I could not have done my job. Come and see. A call to discipleship. Come and see. A call to invitation. Come and see. Get wet with the waters of baptism. Drink the cup of forgiveness. Sit at the feet. Hear. Learn. Respond to your call. Be transformed. Come and see. Amen.
Well,